over now to Britta. Would you like to then introduce also the next speakers that will join in?
Yeah, happy to, Carol. And yeah, as you can see, we are now going after the 3 C's: clarify, create, and connect. We are now going into another exciting topic, the future of work and digitization. And we will have 3 speakers today. We will start with Ozlem, who is the Senior Vice President HR for Atos, and she is passionate about connecting talent and also IT technology, and she will share about her journey within Atos, but also what kind of programs Atos has if it comes also for to future of work programs, which you may not yet know about, and which also shows a bit the future and how Atos is positioned in that way. We will also have Jamie Krulewitz, as you heard. She is the global head of talent or programs within Fitch Group, an MD based in New York. And we are partnering with Fitch to help them to expand their CreditPath program, which is a returnship program helping individuals to go back to work after an extended break of 3+ years. We have it also on our website, so come and visit us or directly to the link of Fitch. Because yeah, it's a very interesting, and for this market in Germany as well as in Singapore, it's a new concept. It's a 12 weeks program, and Jamie will share about it. And we are so happy to partner with Fitch on this to bring it to both Frankfurt and to Singapore. Then we will have Rajiv Chandna as Chief Commercial Officer. Carol, do you want to give a bit of the background of Rajiv?
Yeah, so thanks Britta. So Rajiv is joining. Rajiv has also a very diverse international career. So part of his sharing here is also to share how he has, continued to build networks prior to even sometimes looking into the next roles. He is also previously the head of business development and growth with Grab. For those in Europe here, it's similar to the Uber, as we all know here in Europe. And he has a very diverse also experiences in the financial and the fintech space. So he's going to share a bit about his perspectives on the opportunities when it comes to fintech and how he has made also his career possible, and what are the next steps that we could look into if for those here who are looking into the finance or fintech industry. So Rajiv, thanks for joining. I know you're already here, so looking forward to the insights. Thanks.
Yeah, very happy to. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thanks, Rajiv.
All right. So now I would like to ask Ozlem to come on stage and take over.
Oh, yeah. Hello.
Hi.
Can you hear me well?
Yes, very well.
Good. I'm really glad to be with you today. I see we have almost 50 participants. Some had to leave, so it's my 3rd or 4th time I'm joining the group, and every time it's getting bigger, and there are some faces I already met in the past, and there are some new faces. So I'm glad to be with you here today. I would like to share my screen. It's nothing really a lot to share, but I think so. Yeah, it's sometimes good to have something in front of you. As Britta already explained, I am the HR director for Central Europe and Germany in Atos. Atos is an IT company. For those who don't know about it, we have our headquarters in France, but we do have more than 100,000 employees all around the globe in more than 70 countries. And in my scope, I do have 12 countries. Germany is the biggest one in my scope, but other than that, we are covering the Central Eastern Europe, like Switzerland, Austria, and all the Eastern Europe countries. And I'm in this role just more than a year now. Before that, I'm more than 20, 25 years almost now in the organization. I started in Siemens, and then Siemens acquired the IT, or Atos acquired the IT part of Siemens, and I moved to Atos with that. And throughout my own journey, I started in Turkey as an HR specialist, and then I moved to Germany as an HR consultant. Then I moved back to Germany, to Turkey, and then changed to finance. And I had 8 years of finance experience in between. And then we joined Atos, and I decided to move back to HR. And since then, I'm having I had several leadership roles and expertise roles within Atos in different parts of the organization. I'm currently living in UK, and I will tell you a little bit about my journey in the last year, because when I was appointed to this new role, I was supposed to move to Germany last year in summer. So the plan was that to travel between March and August between London and Munich, but unfortunately, yeah, the COVID came unexpectedly and I couldn't even meet my team. And I want to connect it also with the new way of working. Actually, last year when there was the International Women's Day, the team asked me to have a speech about the flexible working in Atos. And I was already working flexibly in the last 10 years. I worked for India, I worked for Poland, I worked for Romania, I worked for all the Central Eastern Europe countries in the past as well, sitting in my home office in Turkey. And everybody in my family was wondering how I could manage, or what I'm exactly doing, actually sitting in a room in Turkey and managing and telling them that I'm managing such big teams and organizations, operations, and so on. So with the COVID, I think it was a disruption for all of us. And we moved to the new way of working much quicker, but now everybody feels a little bit lost how to continue. Shall we continue as is? Is there a back to office plan, or is there any hybrid model that we are working on, etc.? I will tell you a bit about Atos' approach. But again, I mean, I was planning to meet people, to see people. At the end, I ended up in my son's bedroom, which you can see now. It's stuck, and we still couldn't move. And we are one of the IT partners of Olympics as Atos. We were preparing, and I remember the conversations we were having last year, back in February, that the Olympics might be cancelled, but none of us could really believe that this was going to happen. At the end, now hopefully we will have the Olympics. It's still under consideration, and anything can happen last minute. And during that time, I want to connect also a little bit to Amina and the resilience topic. I think we all have been challenged, and we all had to learn and understand how to be stronger, how we can slow down, how we can generate time for us. Now my life is like from bed to my desk, from desk to the kitchen, from the kitchen back to bed, and in between always checking emails, responding, etc. But after having done it for so many years, and now having less interaction with my team, with the people I'm working with, I started to feel the need really to slow down more than before. And resilience, we were laughing the words to resilience 2-3 years ago, that it's becoming a norm for the HR teams, that we always need to be resilient because of the changing situations, we need to adapt, quick decisions, etc. But now with the COVID situation, I think resilience became much more important for all of us, and the flexibility and the respect and trust we show to others, and that became all very critical. Again, in my situation, we intended to move 3 times, and we already applied for a school, etc. At the end, my son started again the secondary school in UK, so we still couldn't move. We are again banned. And even the biggest events like the Oktoberfest for Germany or the Olympics I already mentioned have been cancelled, and which was a big change for us. And how we have responded as Atos to this new situation is, I mean, we could really go to flexible working and home working in a day in all of our areas, even though some of in our biggest offshore locations, we have service desk, for example, everything was in the office, but we had the right mindset and we had the right technology. But now what we are planning and working on is we have a new project called Bamboo. And with this project, what we are aiming is to, first of all, create an inclusive workplace. And with that, we are aiming to attract a diverse talent in the outside of Atos, and also to retain our diverse talents in the organization. And of course, we will still have some working places where it's more focused on team collaboration. I think all of our people really rated the flexibility we have given during that time quite highly. But at the same time, they do expect to still have the flexibility, but they want to have that team collaboration. They want to have that collaboration areas in the offices as well. That's why we would like to design our offices to rather have a place to meet and connect, but not necessarily for everyday working. If someone needs a place to work, then we will have the offices. Anyone can go and still continue working there, but we will not have any regulations that you should go 2 days a week, 3 days a week. We will want to leave it totally to our employees and to the managers, so that they can decide depending on their own personal needs, on their own life, and also on the needs of the customer. And again, that with that, the customer centricity, we can decide to be more closer to our customers. Some of our sales teams, our project teams, etc., they are anyway traveling, and they have been still working on site during that period as well. But to do that, you need a culture of trust, and I can say we had the mindset already, but we are still evolving, because our people are telling us, some of them, even though they were working flexibly and a lot on customer side, etc., they couldn't, or they still felt the need to be on the office. And again, linking to that, I have seen majority of the participants are women in the organization. And when I say diversity, I don't mean only gender diversity, but we do have a full focus on the gender diversity as well. That's why with these new programs, with giving even more flexibility than before, we are aiming to attract also women talent in the market. And I don't know each of you well, and unfortunately I couldn't join the mentoring sessions this time, but I assume that many of you are having a relaunch in your career or considering a change in your career. Currently, all of the companies are really fighting for talent. I don't like to use the word fight, but it's really, everybody is trying to attract new talents. Everybody is trying to attract diverse talents. I can't say that we are all living it, as we are. I mean, it's still a mindset issue in different parts of the organization. Some are quite mature and understanding the value of it, but some are still far, far away from being. And again, reflecting back to my story, I have been always part of leadership teams with 10, 12 men and the only woman. Maybe sometimes we hired a second woman as well. And looking back, I always tried to somehow prove myself in a men's world. And now I realize, with all these initiatives, this topic to be being discussed, being more or less understood, why we need diversity in the workplace, we see that also the exception to ourselves, that we need to be more compassionate to ourselves, accepting also ourselves, and not trying to be always like the others. So that's quite tricky for us. And as an IT company, it's also very important for us, because if we do have only one part or some parts of our population represented in our organization, then we cannot design IT or technology for the society. You have probably heard a lot of biased artificial intelligence, robots, and so on. And to avoid those biases in our design of technology, we also need to have very diverse population in terms of the gender, in terms of different backgrounds, in terms of different ideas, etc. But again, there is still a long way to go from our side. And because of the time, I don't want to go too much in detail, but maybe one of the programs, this is more an internal one. The other one is, again, both for retention, but also attracting talent. The second one is we do have Atos Women Executive Mentoring Program. It is all of our executives in the organization are matched to one of our female talents or women talents in the organization And we do have one-to-one mentoring sessions, coaching sessions with them, but we do also support them with several webinars. We are continuously mentoring their progress, and they have the opportunity to network. And every time when we are part of, at the beginning, I was personally a little bit against having a focused women program, but you realize till we become really diverse and till it becomes the norm, unfortunately we still need to talk about it, and we still need to support those programs. And every time when we are in a women network talking or exchanging ideas and challenges, etc., you realize people started to speak up about their challenges, and encouraging each other to talk about our challenges, I think, helps us also to accept again and to improve our well-being, our own well-being, and also to have a better understanding of the challenges that the organization is facing. We also started to have some diversity hiring boards, which is for senior roles in the organization. If there are no women shortlisted, then they need to go through a diversity panel, and they need to explain why there are no women, if you couldn't find anyone, etc. And now 30% of those roles have been approved, but 70% so far have been declined by the board, and they were back to searching also some women candidates in the organization. With that, we have improved. We started that in UK, and with that, we have improved the woman ratio in the hiring by 10 to 15%. It's valid for both internal and external hiring. So again, it's just I want to give you a flavor of different initiatives we do have, but I'm going to stop here in case you have questions, comments, or I don't know if you want to proceed with the other colleagues. Unfortunately, I need to leave in 15 minutes.
Thanks, Ozlem. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ozlem, for coming in. I know your schedule is tight, and also for sharing parts of, how you experienced also the COVID situation in your personal case, also to share that and how important resilience is, and then share about the ATOS Bamboo as well as the Women Executive Mentoring Program. I think it's wonderful to see that companies are, when I started working, something like that would not exist. Co-leadership with SAP, Bamboo, something with resilience, diversity, carbon footprint. I mean, we are, the first forum of ours is now also carbon neutral together with climate partners. So if we become all more conscious to the well-being of each other, the well-being of the planet, and I think the support network and having mentoring to speak out and to share about your challenges and not make it, okay, challenges are not, something you should share. It's more, you can share and you get support. I think that's so important, and especially here with our group. So thank you so much for coming in and share more about it. So if you have questions, and as you said rightly, please reach out to Ozlem as we. But if you have a specific question, we may have one time for one question here. To Ozlem, anyone?
I think Lisa is asking.
You can go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead. I think Lisa asked if, as ATOS is an IT company, would it also be possible for someone coming from finance banking to join?
It could be. We do have some finance roles. I don't know your role in finance and banking, but we do have 6 industries, and finance and insurance is one of the industries. And we also require the industry know-how, and especially extended our sales teams in these industries, in these markets. So finance is one of our markets that we are working on. Again, depending on your role, it could be an HR, it could be finance, and so on. But you can follow our open positions on internet. We do. I am currently not I'm in London. There is a question if I'm also in Zurich or in Switzerland. Switzerland is one of our countries that I'm supporting, but I'm still based in London, even though I'm supposed to be in Germany. And again, this showed me, even though it was difficult and I'm missing people, and it was easier to have our CEO sitting next to me to manage topics. But for now, it's 15 months. I haven't met probably 90% of my own team, not at all in person. And I haven't met 70% of the management team either. The rest I have seen just once, and it works. I mean, we have gone through the crisis all together. We have made decisions on phone. We are negotiating with our social partners. At the beginning, we never thought it could work that much, and I was feeling sorry I couldn't move immediately. Now, yeah, you sometimes, yeah, with these forced, again, in a way, forced situations, disruptive situations, we adapt much quicker than we thought, or the organizations are adapting as well.
Thanks, Ozlem.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ozlem, for sharing so honestly. And so I would like then to invite now Jamie to also talk about another great program, a corporate program, the CreditPath program, to help and support individuals to go back to work after an extended break, and how it's designed, and why it's also expanding into other jurisdictions and countries, having been initiated in the US, I think 3 years ago, approximately. Am I right, Jamie? So I would like you now to come in and share more about it. And thank you again, Ozlem, for coming in.
Thanks.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Brita. Thank you, Ozlem. Nice to meet you virtually, hopefully someday in person. And I mean the same with everybody else on the call. So thank you to Brita and Caroline and everybody from And Ahead for this lovely invitation to be with you today. It's exciting to talk about not just this particular program, but more in general, our organization and why this program makes sense for our organization. So first, let me tell you a little bit about myself, and I'm going to keep it really short, but there is a point why I'm talking about myself, but this is not about me, this is about you. But I do have a few reinventions in my career, and that's why I'll just spend a few minutes because it might be interesting and relevant to what you all are going through. So I am the global head of talent programs at Fitch. Fitch Group is a financial services company. Our probably most well-known business is Fitch Ratings. We do credit ratings in the global market. We are in 33 countries around the world, and we also have other smaller businesses, but Fitch Ratings is kind of the oldest and the biggest still. I've been with the company for 10 years. My role was created as a result of the global financial crisis. All of a sudden, training and testing competency around the world was regulated for the first time after the credit crisis. And Fitch, while we had a really strong culture of learning and mentoring, we had no internal expertise in terms of an organization-wide training and assessment program. So they hired me for that one role, and that was to design more or less a credit training program for our analysts. And 10 years later, my job has gotten so big, but I'm in charge of global learning and development. I'm in charge of our talent pipeline. So that's things like campus recruitment, our internship programs, our graduate training programs. I'm in charge of diversity, equity, and inclusion, in particular, how it relates to talent programs. I'm in charge of our compliance training regime, and it is a regime, and it feels oppressive sometimes, but we keep it good. It's almost the price of entry. I'm in charge of leadership development, and I'm in charge of performance management, progression, and the talent streams, succession planning, and things like that. So my role has gotten huge, but that's how I like it. And I am a bit of an entrepreneur at heart. So I like building new things and new programs and every new remit and function that I'm given at Fitch, it's building something more or less from scratch. But I started by saying I've had a circuitous career path, and I think it's important in this conversation. I was in the legal industry for quite a few years. I thought I was going to law school. I got into law school. I deferred law school for 2 years. Interestingly, I was interested in women's issues at the time, and that's why I was going to law school. But I kept deferring, and then I went to culinary school, and for a number of years, I was a professional pastry chef. And now I find myself after 10 years, as I said, as the global head of talent at a financial services company. So know your strengths, know what drives you, know what's important to you in your career. And I could, shockingly, I could probably explain how in all those different roles, my strengths and interests actually come through, and there's a through line of all of that. Now let me switch gears and talk about the program at Fitch called CreditPath. Britta, you're right, we started the program in 2017, but we have been doing it for 3 years because last year, for obvious reasons, we did not offer the program. It is a women's return to work program, although this year we're expanding to US military veterans. It is a program, it at its heart, it was originally a diversity and inclusion talent development program because we had found that we didn't have as many women at the senior ranks at Fitch as we would like, and as we had at the junior levels. And we found that women were leaving typically at the mid-level of our career path. And we call it the leaky pipeline in this sort of terminology. And we felt, what can we do to replenish that leaky pipeline? And this was our solution. I would love to take credit for the original idea. I cannot. Goldman Sachs was the first to offer a program like this. But I do feel like we've really made it our own at Fitch and taken it to really great levels. It's a 10-week program. The reason we call it an internship or a returnship is because it isn't at its heart, it's a learning program. It's a supported path back to the workforce after a career break. So we do an intensive training boot camp, and then we place people in groups that make sense given what their prior experience had been. So if you, Lisa and I, you just heard my mentee during the break, she has a background in financial analysis and auditing of banks and funds and things like that. So she would likely, if she were in our program, she would likely go into our financial institutions group, and we have a fund and asset management group, we have a banks group, and probably it would make sense for her to do her rotation in something like that. So it's a 10-week paid program where we not only give technical skills support, but we give mentoring, professional skills support, personal branding, confidence, how to present to yourself, communications, and things like, what did you miss? Let's say if you've had a 10-year career break, what's going on in the market? What's changed in terms of regulatory issues? What's changed in technology? And I'll say this, and for anybody who will ask, I've never had a career break per se, but I cannot keep technology. So don't feel intimidated. Nobody knows everything, and we do our best to try to provide the support. And then ultimately, like an internship that one would do during university, we hire out of the program for the successful people. And it's been a huge, it's been a great, effective, and successful program for us. We have we've had 2 people go through this program who had career breaks of 18 years. One of them just started last year, but one of them who started in one of the earlier cohorts just got promoted. So it's a wonderful way back into the workforce. And we are now, it's been so successful for us that we want to expand the benefits. And while we had done it in our biggest offices, London, Chicago, and New York, we are now expanding, as Britta mentioned, to Frankfurt and Singapore, among some other offices in the US as well. So I think I'm probably ending my time. There's so much to talk about, but I could relinquish the baton to the next person or questions. Britta, I don't know how do you like me to proceed?
Thanks, Jamie.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming in, Jamie. I think we will have Rajiv now, and you can stay a bit longer. Then we can have the rest of the time before we go into the resilience for a Q&A about the program. I shared also here in the chat about the program. You can all go to our website where we have the links to the program itself, more information, and but the best you can do is ask Jamie directly here, and yeah, so we now would like to go on with Rajiv.
Hi, thank you,
Thank you for coming in.
No, absolutely excited to be here, and thank you, Carol, for reaching out for this initial invitation.
Thanks,
I mean, I can also see how excited everybody is to be a part of this process. So for me, it's a huge privilege to be given this space to just share my experience. And I also see some familiar faces in the participant list, so it's nice to be in a familiar space too. So, maybe I'll take 5 minutes or so. I guess maybe maybe 3 key messages, and then I'll maybe build on those key messages through my intro. I think one, career switch, or forget career switch, context switch in a professional environment is an absolutely wonderful thing to do, and that comes from different industries, different companies, different countries as we move along. And I'll talk a bit about why I think that's amazing. I mean, second, I'd say is that women in leadership positions have such a fundamental value add, which is very different to when an institution is entirely perhaps much more male dominated. And I'll talk a bit about that. I'm very proud to work for a company today, a unicorn, or rather a decacorn, whose co-founder is a woman, and what impact has that had on the company. And maybe third, I'll talk a bit about, having said that, there is a challenge in sort of when we think about approach to work culture, in particular in Europe versus Asia. And I've had an opportunity to work in both spaces, so I'll talk a bit about that. So to first, my key message, which is about context switch. So I'm currently in Singapore. Right before this, I was living in Indonesia, and prior to that, I've lived in 5 other markets across Asia and Europe. So this is my 7th market to kind of live and operate in, and almost, and actually the 7th market where the mother tongue, the local language is entirely different to mine and how I've grown up. So I worked in Germany for a couple of years, Netherlands before that, Switzerland for some time, UK, and now and Indonesia, and now Singapore. And in each one of these markets, and at the same time, I worked for DHL, which is like a heavy industrial company, to Cadbury, which is where I sold chocolates for a living, to BCG, where I was a consultant, to my latest invention as a fintech enthusiast in Asia. And each one of these context switches, whether that was a geographical context switch or an industrial context switch, or indeed a language context switch, has added a lot to who I am. And while I fully acknowledge that I'm very privileged to have that experience, I do think that each one of those context switches, whether that was an industry change or a country change, added a lot to my life. So anybody here, as you think about your professional experience ahead, I guess my biggest takeaway from everything I've experienced over the last 20 years is that the only way at this stage to remain relevant is every few years force yourself into a context switch. And whether that comes by changing your industry, changing your country, or forcing yourself to operate in a language that's not native to yours will add a huge amount to our capability, our personality. And it's incredible how these experiences come together, in every work environment. So I suppose that's one. I guess the second is, so I had a chance to work for a bank, a very, very male-dominated bank, where in the team that I worked in, which was 100% men, to joining Cadbury. So I was at DHL actually. DHL is fairly is a company of glorified truck drivers, as we used to say. A very, very male company, a very male culture, where 90% of the conversations or leadership roles were filled in by men, to joining Cadbury in the UK, where I'd say 95% of leadership roles were filled by women, especially because I was part of the marketing organization. And I really didn't think much about it till the time I joined Cadbury and realized I was being left out of the Saturday afternoon brunches and a Friday afternoon getaway for a champagne and a coffee, or a champagne and a pastry, because that wasn't considered something that men could participate in. So I suppose from a cultural and sort of a gender integration point of view, that was the first time I really appreciated what it takes to make sure that we think about gender diversity more seriously. And I'm in no way suggesting that men are being excluded from workplaces. I guess I'm trying to make an opposite point, that men actually don't realize what exclusion feels like till the time they're excluded. And working for Cadbury was, for me, a first-hand experience of what an exclusion could feel like, and I suppose gave me a sense of empathy for the challenge that women face across workplaces in areas that tend to be, male-dominated. So that's, I suppose, my second point. And then maybe my third point, which is a reflection of having worked in Europe for about 15 odd years, and now in Asia, in Singapore and Indonesia for the last 5 years or so. That approach to inclusive workplaces, or the lack of it for that matter, in Asia is a material issue. I don't think some of the topics that have been discussed today, by the Ozlem and the previous speakers is anyway front and center of the conversations, in the same way it has become in Europe. This notion of how do we make sure that we create a workspace where people can bring the best of them to the workplace. I don't think those conversations are nearly as front and center for Leadership Mind. There isn't a talent management regime, as Jamie mentioned. And I think and this unfortunately has a much bigger impact on women than it does on men, for all sorts of kind of societal reasons in Asia. So I mean, I think that's something that's always kind of worth considering. How do we bring that impact and that progressive thinking from European companies into Asia? I mean, to give you an example, the most commonly talked about work ethic in Asia is 996. Which translates into 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 6 days a week. And, that's how frequently actually tech companies talk about their own work culture and take sort of a perverse amount of pride in it too. And that's the reality. So in that environment, how do we create inclusive workplaces? And having leaders like this group that's on the call today it's really a great opportunity for that discussion. So I suppose those are my 3 insights as I was thinking about this particular forum. I hope it's helpful, and happy to take any questions.
Thanks a lot, Rajiv. Thank you very much for sharing. It's also interesting because I think on one hand, you also have to manage within your family unit 2 very ambitious people within the family unit careers. And I think part of the discussion here is also to see how you make that happen. And you have a little one coming along the way as well. So congratulations. Some of the questions that we might have, maybe you would like to bring on a bit of how do you manage, this couple dynamics where you and your wife is both looking into, ambitious careers of your own. Would you like to share some insights as you manage it across even different countries and geographical regions?
Yeah, and thanks for that question, Carol. I guess for us personally, it has always been about kind of very clear, and I think we've made career choices that support that, which has been about we need to pick careers that allow us to be incredibly focused on our families, and then make those trade-offs that allow us to execute. So some of the choices we've made is that we've requested is that one, we're in Asia, that allows us to be closer to our families and pull the grandparents in much closer than we would have thought otherwise. And I think that's been a very frank conversation within us. And maybe as I'm talking through it, I don't want it to be a stream of consciousness. I guess for us, core to it has been a really, really open discussion about between me and my wife as to who we are as people and what makes us happy, and therefore making choices collectively and then making the right trade-off. So having my in-laws living with us has been a really important choice for us that we've thought about, and that we've said that. We've also made a choice about only one person who has a traveling job and the other person who cannot. And we've been very explicit about those choices and have said no to career opportunities as they've come along. We've also been very explicit about even minor things about where we live, which kind of schools we choose, that allow us to kind of make those choices. And at the heart of it is honestly kind of very open and honest conversation and focusing on happiness for us as a unit and being able to make some of the tough trade-offs that come with it, but knowing the big picture is that for both of us, the priority is that we are happy as a family.
Thanks for sharing. I think that's very inspiring to have also bringing in the family unit and also the goals and ambitions for both, and to not moving forward in the progress. So I'm a big fan of how you both make it happen. So thanks for sharing that. Jamie, there is a question about skills, because the CreditPath program has a very important learning component and onboarding as well when the person joins. And I think having so many discussions with you, even already a couple of years back, we are always in awe of how thorough the program has been designed, looking into the agenda, the times, the school, even matching it with schooling as well. So would you like to share a bit more about, what are some of the skill sets do you feel is important, and how have you designed it and incorporated into the CreditPath program?
Sure, and you're right. This is what I meant, I guess, when I was saying Fitch has taken the basic concept of a return to work program, and we have really, in every nook and cranny, we feel that we have really thought through every detail of the program to maximize the benefit in every way. So you're right, Carol, even something as seemingly benign as when do we run this program, or that we run it as a cohort in and of itself is really important to us, because we feel that the support and network that women get as being part of a cohort, that community as they're transitioning back to work, is so important. So that was the design choice. Instead of kind of having you could apply and come on board at any time, we do it as a cohort. And then we were very, very intentional about the timing. So we were thinking that the best scenario for women who are coming back into the workforce was probably once the kids were back in school and they were settled a little bit, but yet ending before the holiday season and all of the chaos and responsibilities and activities there. So we do this kind of the mid to late September until December. And so you're right, every single thing about this program is well thought out, including the skills and the training that we provide. So our program, not surprisingly, is mostly focused for women who have financial services backgrounds. and in particular financial analysis, and great if it's credit analysis in particular. But what we look for, and this year, another expansion I didn't mention before, but we're expanding into the technology functions at our firm, in particular software engineering. And the reason that those are the two speaks to this again. We feel that we have the #1 critical mass so that we could provide the proper mentoring, and that we have a really well built out training capability in those areas so that we can really offer best in class training opportunities. So everybody, we kind of start where in a way, we want to equip and set people up for success. So we have, the first thing I did, as I mentioned, when I joined Fitch, was create something called the Fitch Credit Academy. So what we do is we are able to pull, we have I think it's over 200 courses as part of that academy. So we can really leverage that and fill in for people where the gaps are. We give a level set to make sure we have the foundation, but then we can mix and match almost and customize to upskill people how they need it. We have something that I built called the Fitch Management Academy. So if we need kind of communication skills, executive presence, things like that, we can pull and mix and match from that. So we're very well thought out. We also have a sister company called Fitch Learning. So if we need customized learning as part of this program, which we do, we can work with our, another Fitch company to design and offer that training as well. And then we have mentoring. And after the first class, we pair somebody who is successfully a graduate of CreditPath with somebody going through the program because they know exactly what it's like. So in all different ways, we've thought about the support. I think so far the model is working really well. Going into IT will be new to us this year, but we've gone through an agile transformation. If you don't know what that is, it's a different way, a sort of, I would say, a modern way that IT approaches product development. And these are all terms that I didn't even know myself what it all meant a year ago. But what that meant going through a change management transformation is we did build out a lot of support and training, and we have the mentors. So that's why we feel we can offer something similar on the technology side as well.
That sounds really, really great. So there's the learning space for everyone with all the different various needs. I think Lisa mentioned that it would be great to have more programs like Fitch. Globally in the world, to our knowledge, around 150 companies running such programs. In Asia and in Europe, it's still a fairly new concept. I think in Singapore, it started already a couple of years back, and great to have Fitch also now coming into the other new markets. Yeah. Maybe we take one last question. Rajiv, what are some of the skill set that you think is important for someone who wants to go further into finance, fintech, that is really sought out for? And if they don't have it, what should they do?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great question because I mean, I have to admit, so I'm a graduate of London Business School, and I took a lot of pride in, I'm Indian origin, and I took a lot of pride in having these really fancy degrees next to my name, and always sort of worried about is my degree fancy enough? And having joined a fintech here in Southeast Asia, the two of the best people that I've hired in my team, one never graduated, and second sort of went to a very average kind of university, and that too at the age of 33 did that sort of an adult education type program. And it really made me realize that I was maybe valuing the wrong things. And I don't mean to make this some philosophical thing about everybody wanting to quit their job, quit their degrees. But certainly my takeaway from there is that what really matters is aptitude and attitude, that you're willing to go in and do the really the grunty things. And with with a fair bit of enthusiasm and excitement. So this guy that I hired, he never graduated, and the ask of the hour at the time was that we were trying to build a team, and we hired him as a BD guy, as a business development guy, and we told him, hey man, actually the biggest problem right now is that we need to fill these 10 vacancies, and we can't find people. So all he did was, for a month, he just did recruitment. And it's not his skill set. It's never done it before, but he built a long pipeline of candidates. And he did such a great job that he did a million other things after that. So I don't mean to go on and on about it, but I thought my biggest reflection is that I perhaps was valuing maybe even the wrong things about sort of worrying about the right degree. What really mattered was aptitude, attitude, being able to do the right thing, being able to do anything sort of that comes with you with a level of enthusiasm and almost like see where that goes. And I mean, I can say that that's been true for me. And I can say definitely that that's been true of the teams that I've hired into. So yeah, I hope that helps.
Yeah, that's a very good, I think, sharing also for those in the forum, because many of us have all been in this journey of a transit or relaunch, myself included. And it's often not the easiest, and good. It's great to also understand that sometimes we just need to take the leap into areas that we're curious about. We have a few mentors who are still here also on the forum. Derek, for example, does a lot of trainings for data analytics. So just want to give that shout out in case anyone wants to learn and pick up new skill sets and go into new areas. Please reach out to us or the mentors that you have been connected with. Thanks for sharing, Rajiv. Also, Jamie, really appreciate it. We would have some other questions from the participants, but we come back to you and maybe we then can connect directly. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
Appreciate, especially also Jamie coming in early and Rajiv coming in late from all different time zones as well. As a next step, thanks Jamie, thanks Rajiv. As a next step, we would also have a very important topic, as we already bridged to the point that this journey is not often the easiest. It can also bring us down a little bit when we don't get the support networks. And part of the reason for designing, the program for the last Friday and today is also to ensure the support system is there. And resilience is an important one to build, not only to get back into the role, but also to continue growing within our various companies that we join in future, or as an entrepreneur, as some of us are here. So thanks, Jamie.